And you would think I'd be smart enough to say, oh, let me do it in my own backyard because I could go walk by or drive by the house in Las Vegas. No, we do it in Indiana. We do it in Kentucky because
absolutely.
Because
you two are just kindred spirits.
Right. Why do it easy and go there when I could do something completely asinine and go somewhere else and beat my head against the wall? That's my approach. That's how I do it. Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Always starts right now. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Small Business Safari, where we have a great guest today, Ryan DeMent from Truvest Capital. He has a unique story. I love the part that he actually puts it in his bio. I'm a 2-time failed entrepreneur, and we're going to dive deep into that.
I resemble that remark.
Exactly. We're going to have a lot of experience with that. And in fact, I've got one right now that's not going too well either. But you never fail as an entrepreneur. You just get to learn really expensively.
Well, maybe if you were in the office a little bit more, Chris. Do we have to beat this dead horse again?
I'm in the office. I've been in the office all day, Alan.
Oh, really?
Don't ask me where I'm going tomorrow, though.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. All right, everybody.
I know where you're going tomorrow.
Do you?
Are you heading towards the President's Cup?
I am indeed. Going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina for the President's Cup and be there on Friday in full regalia.
Managing his business from his phone.
That's right. That's how I do it, even if they don't let you have the phone on the course. So with that, we have got to get started. We always start every episode with cheers.
Cheers.
Ryan, today we're cheers you with Modelo.
Cheers.
And we will get into this.
Muy bueno.
Modelo was muy bueno. Let's get started. As I mentioned earlier, Ryan has a bio, and I'm going to go ahead and just hit some of the highlights because I think this is important for everybody to hear, is that he started his business. We'll get into what he did in the beginning, and we want to hear about how you got to where you are today, kind of figure out who the hell you are and where you came from. But you started 2 businesses, didn't go well. You followed the greed, you followed the money, and the money didn't pay off. And we talk about that all the time. You find your passion, the money will follow. And now you found something you're passionate about, and you found the right people to work with, and you've now had a lot more joy and success. So 2-time failed entrepreneur? I don't think so. I think actually he learned, as we all do, very expensively, because I had somebody say, Chris, we never fail as entrepreneurs. We just get opportunities to learn. I said, why is it always so damn expensive? So with that, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm honored. It's been a blast already. We're only 2 or 3 minutes into this already, and I'm already I can't stop laughing.
He's the first guy that's ever been honored.
You know what?
I like you already.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the first time he's actually kissing up to the host just right, isn't he?
I've got good practice.
That's good. That's right. Ryan also will be talking about Ryan's podcast as well as we go through this, and we'll talk about those later. So you can go find out his podcast, which is excellent as well. So, Ryan, let's talk about this. You, where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? And how the hell did you fail? No.
Yeah, we can go real simple. I grew up in Southern California, and I lived the California life and spent most of my life there till I was roughly about 25. And I said, F California, and left. And at the time I was working in corporate America, and I was running call centers, collection agencies, that type of stuff for some major banks. And they moved me around. So my first stop was Vegas. Next stop was Indiana, Texas, Florida, Delaware, and Arizona's in there. And I'm back in Arizona now, since I've moved around. But my call to arms for myself, and I say this, is the moving and the corporate America experience created who I am today, but entrepreneurship is formed me into a different mold of a person, because corporate America left me fat and happy and didn't teach me how to be a fisherman. And those are 2 big reasons why my first 2 businesses failed. But the other piece, like you said earlier on your introduction, was greed. I was chasing money. It was big money. It was a lot of money. And I wasn't watching the bottom line. I wasn't managing the business. I wasn't looking for other revenue sources. It was all about instant gratification. and that is just a disaster.
So fat and happy's bad.
I got that, and I was right with him on that. I mean, it's a very parallel scenario for me. He was you said you were doing the call centers in the financial services world?
Yep. And then so my first business that failed was a collection agency. So we were buying debt, charged off credit card accounts, and they were attached to assets. So we were litigating. So we had an in-house attorney, and we would litigate against them. Well, that just kept on going and going and going, and it became more problems than it's worth. So I had to shut that down. Then I decided to go back to corporate America, hang out for a while. And then I figured, oh, let me play in the mortgage space. And then I started buying scratch and dent loans, and then the scratch and dent loans needed to be collected on. So I had the background already, and that's where the greed came in, because then I started bringing on all these warehouse lines from these lenders and some brokers, and they needed help. And to be honest,
what is a scratch and dent loan?
Yeah.
So scratch and dent is, let's say you're a broker and you have a warehouse line, and a warehouse line is a line of credit that's set up with a larger lender like a Bank of America or a Chase or some type of regional lender that gives you money to originate loans on their behalf. They will then buy that loan from you as long as it meets all their underwriting criteria. So you've done all your due diligence, you've done your underwriting, now you've passed it off to them. They do the exact same thing. What happens between the time you pass it off to them, there's something missing in the due diligence file or the underwriting file, to where the lender kicks it back and says, too bad, so bad, too sad, too bad, so sad. We're not buying it. It's now yours. Get it fixed. And oh, by the way, it's also 30 days past due, so it also needs to be collected upon. So then the broker is stuck with that, and it's counted against their line of credit or their wholesale line. So it's limiting them in their mortgage originations. So they've got to get rid of it. So there's two options there. They can sell them in the secondary and tertiary markets for a discount, knowing that it's a bad loan. Or three, they can make it right, get the due diligence taken care of, the underwriting taken care of, and bring it current with payments. That's where my agency would come in. We would help them with the due diligence, help them with the underwriting, bring them current. And then at some points, if they were decent enough houses that had enough equity, we potentially would buy them for a substantial discount. And when I say discount in that space, it's typically about 15 to 20 cents discount. In the non-performing mortgage space that we deal with today, it's more like 50-cent discount. So there's a huge difference in the two.
Right. So does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Do you want an example of a scratch and dent?
I think you have one, don't you?
I don't have one, but I think Ryan probably will. I did not have to deal with it directly like that in the world I was in. But when you say there might be something wrong, it might be that either the title wasn't perfected, or they couldn't maybe get the state. They went off not stated income. They couldn't find the income statement. Give us an example of one that was ugly and you guys picked it up.
The ones that I've always remembered was the broker really pushed through the underwriting criteria and didn't verify the income. So this was pre 2007, 2008. So as long as you had a heartbeat and a PIN, we'd give you a mortgage.
You didn't have to verify.
All right,
income, right?
So I do have one. That's why I was waiting to hear what he would say. So I was working at SunTrust local bank. I was in the credit department, and I got a story about how this happened. And that's what was happening, is that this individual was sitting in the bank. We ended up we picked it up at corporate credit later, and they told the story. And the story went like this: the guy came in, and he said, "I want to develop on the beach." And they go, "Okay, well, listen, we've done plenty of loans with you." And so he had a loan. He had a couple loans with us there, and they said, "Well, looks like your debt to income's a little high. What was your income again?" And he said X. And they go, "No, I don't think it's X." He goes, "You're right. X plus Y plus Z. Okay, that's the number we're going to put down, stated income." And the reason I got to corporate credit is because he just didn't have a couple of loans with us. He had 10 mortgage loans. He had commercial lines of credit, commercial loans, and he had property loans. And they were in 3 different systems. And we didn't know that. We were into this guy for about $5 million right as the crash hit in 2007 as it started up. And he was one of the first guys to go. So that's what a scratch and dent loan is. And then you sell them to Ryan, and Ryan says, you know what? I'll go collect on this sucker. And now I'm going to make all this money on this too. Look at this go.
And
so
it's a lot harder to collect these days too, isn't it?
Oh God, the collection world has changed. And if you asked me to go back to it today, yeah, I mean, I date myself. I'm a prehistoric animal when it comes to collections, because I started door-to-door collections back in the day when I was a kid in California. I was doing title loans and also payday loans. And when those people didn't pay their bill, guess what happened? You got to go knock on their door, and you got to collect the money from them. And that sucked. Dogs, bats, knives, guns, all pulled on me. I mean, nice. it became very quick. You're walking in the company I was working for, you're walking up to these people's houses in a suit. So they knew you were coming, you were advertising it, and they're prepared for you already. So it's like,
was it a Kevlar suit?
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
I just had that mental image. I'm going to pull my dog on you. Woof, I got my dog.
The guns and the knives, when they first started happening, I got a whole background on that piece, but you'd be amazed how quickly you can react to it, and you just know what to do. But some people just freeze, and we would go in pairs of two, and the person I was with, just froze and just I don't know how to describe it other than he fell over and passed out.
A lot of things that you build up to, it makes it sound like you would have been wildly successful in this world, because I think a lot of things that form us, first is our first job, whatever we're doing. And you were nitty gritty out there, suit and tie, dogs, knives, cats, everything.
Look at him, though. He's got such an innocent looking face. Can you imagine?
He does actually still look like he's 18.
I know. Can you imagine pulling a gun on him? It's.
Well, if he's coming after my money, I guess.
I guess
because I'm a deadbeat.
You got to get your bat out first.
I pull my dog.
But the funny thing is, I agree with you, Chris. It just, when that happens, I thought collections or buying scratch and dent notes were my passion. And I was young and really didn't understand the concept of passion, and understand what you're doing for a living is, it's got to come from the heart and everything else follows. We're not taught that. And I think we talked about it on our podcast. I can't remember, but we kind of talked about schooling and understanding where that all comes from, and how people today think entrepreneurship is, I'm going to go put out a TikTok video and it's going to go viral and I'm going to be a millionaire overnight. And it doesn't work that way.
I do that in conjunction. I told him I did that in conjunction. I wasn't going to become an influencer millionaire
and I know
overnight.
How disappointed you are when you didn't become a millionaire overnight on TikTok.
I was a little disappointed, but don't worry, I'm going to TikTok the hell out of this weekend. So back to Ryan. That's what this is about. All right. So Ryan, you started the first one. Did you get a partner in the first one, or did you do this all on your own?
The first one was a partner, and it was my brother. Okay. And there's a whole nother story to go into, is don't go into business with your family. But I did it again I did it again with my parents, but I didn't learn.
Fool me once, shame on you, right?
Fool me twice, screw my mom and dad. What?
Yeah, but there's no hard there's no hard feelings with my brother. Just he had a different set of ideas, and our skill set, and this is where the problem lies, is as an entrepreneur, you want to surround yourself with people that have different skill sets. My brother was wired almost identical to me. He was an operator, and we butt heads on a lot of things operational. And until he understood that he needed to be on the sales side in more of the back office and let me handle the operations, that business went on for almost 6 years and some change. But it doesn't work. You can't have those yes men or yes women around you. As an entrepreneur, as a leader, however you want to look at it, it just doesn't work. And if you have the same skill sets, boom, it blows up.
First gold nugget of the day.
He's dropping them, man. Those are two good ones. Well, first one was don't go in business with my brother, right. Which I definitely will not. I love my brother, but no, he's in corporate America.
You notice he said he has no hard feelings with his brother, but he didn't say whether or not his parents have a hard feeling for him.
Yeah, he didn't say that. So mom and dad, they still.
It was a challenge. Don't get me wrong. It was pretty hard, but you know what? 3-4 years later, they jumped in and said, "Oh yeah, let's go buy defaulted mortgages." I presented them the idea, and we started talking about it, and then they started going crazy about it, as in like looking and investigating and going through the whole process and how they could obtain the notes, because if you're buying in that space, you're typically buying directly from the lender. So it could be a regional bank, it could be a credit union, or you could buy. I mean, we don't have the line of credit or the stature to buy from JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, or anything like that. But there's some Fifth Third out there that we do some business with, in some other regional banks like that. But they're the ones that did the research and said, okay, we need to go start buying these houses. And I'm like, no, we're not buying houses. We're buying mortgages, and they're defaulted. And guess what? You got to get a servicer. And that's a whole nother game. And that was a problem. I mean, it took probably a good 2.5, 3 years to understand that, because you as the buyer become the bank. And then now you're regulated just like a traditional bank or lender, and you need a third party involved. Well, you got to go find yourself a mortgage servicer. And then you got to find out if that mortgage servicer can handle your volume, because we started with 2. Most mortgage servicers are not going to, oh, I want to onboard 1 or 2 mortgages from you. Are you kidding me? So it's tough, and to learn that business, but it's also rewarding too. You're able to help people keep their houses. There's 12 different exit strategies to help these individuals, and to get the letters or the emails from them saying, hey, thank you for being patient with us and working through the process and allowing us to stay in our home and not losing it. It's rewarding. It's the passion. It's my heart. It makes me happy.
So I love the passion that you talked about. And let's go back just a little bit more about the lessons learned and the entrepreneurship. Did you build a business plan in both of those first ones?
Negative ghostwriter. The past.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm glad we're going to keep calling fouls on our
What do you got in the cup there?
Did you go well heeled?
It's just water.
Oh,
I've got to be ready for my next meeting after this, because I've got to talk to the city about some city development stuff, the crap that I'm dealing with.
right.
Maybe it should be fire water then.
It should be. You should go to did you say like fireball? You should just go and just absolutely hammered. Let me tell you how we're going to run this today.
I love government.
Yes.
So, no business plan. You get into it. Did you have enough capital to keep yourself going? Did you feel like you were well heeled enough to do it?
Initially, yes, but as everything started transpiring and more lenders wanted to come on, no, because we were putting the money back. We overspent on a space, so there was the first problem. And then the second thing was the technology. We were spending on all this great technology, which we really didn't need. So in a sense, we put money back in the business, and then we overspent in the space, which caused problems.
Yeah, that's a great one right there. I think everybody's got to take that away. You need to have that great space on Rodeo Drive and spend $7,000 a month for somebody who's never going to come into your office and look at you. No, you need to be in the worst possible place ever that has spiders and cockroaches, things running around. By the way, that's what happened today. We had to run around in circles all around the office.
Is that why the fans are out there?
No, the fans are out there because the air conditioning broke.
Oh,
and I'm too cheap to fix it. No, I'm kidding. We're getting it fixed.
So the gold nugget is you need to run a sweatshop. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean that's what I've heard.
So you're going to the golf tournament for 4 days. Meanwhile, your staff has no air conditioning, and it's 90 degrees.
Really? It is. Yeah. Well, yeah. I got one unit working, so we're blowing fans all over the place. Keep everybody cool. But the lady this morning, Janessa, says in my front office, says, "Chris, there's spiders everywhere." Literally, she says this. I feel like I need to strip down. I said, those are only things that we can say because we love each other. I said, but you're not really supposed to say that, especially because you're my HR manager. All right, so back to that. So you overspent on your space, the technology. That was the shiny object.
I tell you, that is such a great gold nugget for somebody thinking about getting into business. I mean, we're making fun, but man, you're so full of optimism when you start a business, and you're thinking, oh, whatever that number is, it's totally worth it, and I'm going to have this great office, and well, of course, we need the best technology money can buy, and that's just a big freaking nut that you have to pay every month, regardless if you have $1 coming in or not.
Very, very true. And the other thing is, I relate this back into my podcast. Is when my podcast started out 4 years ago, I was using my cell phone to shoot it. Nice. And today, you know, I've got some better equipment, but that's where I started. But if I didn't make these mistakes, these blunders, whatever you want to call them, in my other life in the entrepreneur space, I don't think I would have been going out and spending
learning opportunities.
Yeah, no, these are, you know what? Can I cuss?
Sure. Yeah, man.
My fuck ups. It's how I learn. I mean, and for me, it's a struggle because I see people making mistakes over and over again. It's the same thing. And they just like, they don't get it. And it's like, you got to stop and think about it and figure out what you're doing wrong, because you're trying to put a circle into a peg and it just doesn't work. You've got to figure this stuff out, guys. And it's like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And not to bash on the construction industry, Chris, but it feels like sometimes when I'm talking to a general contractor or one of my trades, it's like, holy crap, guys, I know you guys are smarter than this. I'm not a construction guy, but you guys should be able to get this. And it's like, where are you? It's frustrating.
Yeah. And the answer is no, we're not that smart. We just keep plowing along. In fact, I did safety training this morning. I got some great pictures that I showed to my guys. I got one guy bending over with the guy cutting a board with a circular saw on his back. And the tagline says, it says at the top, look at the idiot. He doesn't even have his safety glasses on. So yes, we're not that smart in construction, but you hit on something. If you would have gone back and you were starting your business and you happened to run across Alan, who is now a commercial real estate broker, or Chris, who's in a business, an entrepreneur, and you said, hey, I'm going to do this. And we would have said, wow, Ryan, that seems like you're spending a lot of money on the space. You would have went, screw you. I know better. Well, I mean, you might not have, but I did. As I was making my mistakes.
You know what? Potentially, but then on the other side, I'm thinking back during that time, I was looking for a mentor, but it wasn't like one of those active things. Like today, I'm trying, and I've actually started working with two. We're starting to work on a land development deal to where I know nothing about raw land development. I've got some ideas. I understand what we need to go through stepwise, but all the nuances, no clue. And I wasn't willing to take it on and say, hey, let me screw this up too. It's a big deal. I mean, so back then I wasn't actively pinging the radar, if that makes sense, but I wanted help, but I wasn't really putting it out there to get there. Today, I do. When I come across a roadblock, and I know that I don't have the skill set, or it's going to take me too long. That's the other thing, is time. Time is money. And if you can get some time back and have somebody help you with that, that's a big win.
That's a rock on right there, man. I mean, getting somebody to help and reaching out. We've said this a lot. One of the things I learned coming out of corporate America is I kept a lot of things close to my vest. I thought I did a good job getting mentors in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But reaching out and actually getting them and finding people, being engaging, being interesting, and then getting their advice and actually heeding it is a big, big win and a big gold nugget for everybody. It's just, you really got to take a check on that to think about, are you getting the right advice? And I'm in a monthly group that meant we actually met today here in my office, which was spider and cockroach infested
and hot
but they loved it. They loved it. Nonetheless, they still loved me. At least they told me.
Because you were the one with the water.
Yeah. And they loved me as they were walking out. And they're all everybody was hitting towels on their head, going, oh, thanks, Chris. But that's the thing. You got to open yourself up and get out there. And now you're working with two different people who are helping you. I think that's just a huge gold nugget.
But here's, if you guys want to talk nuggets, there are entities out there that will do free mentoring and coaching. You just have to find them. And I found them in the past, and I've actually gone back to one of the mentors that I found back in the day, and he referred me to these two individuals that I'm talking to. But they, of course, I'm going to have to pay for them because that's a big deal. But if you're really starting out and have no place to go, score.org is.
Amen. I just said it again today. Yep. Great one.
Okay. So yeah, I love Score, and I refer people there all the time, especially when they're on a tight budget and they have a concept, they have an idea. You literally can go search the nation for a mentor, and you don't have to be in the same state because everything can be done remotely now. So there's that technology piece that you don't have to worry about.
All right. So you've now failed in 2 entrepreneur deals. You said you went back to corporate America to recover.
Yeah, because I got myself in debt. I was 6 figures in debt and needed to get myself out of debt because it's not one of those things I like to carry around.
Let's back that up for a minute. 6 figures in debt, not 1, mm-hmm. not 2, mm-hmm. not 3, not 4. I'm going all the way. Not 5, 6 figures. Everybody, if you don't think that's a lot of money, that's a lot of damn money. That hurts.
I could tell you it was a lot of money because I was writing the check every single month or the bill pay. Yeah. So yeah, it was painful. And people said, why don't you just file bankruptcy? 1, I didn't believe in bankruptcy, still don't. And 2, I didn't have the ability to. If I wanted to go back to corporate America and work in finance in the banks that I was working for prior to, they wouldn't take me back because of my background. I have to pass a background check, security exchange stuff, blah, blah, blah. Bankruptcy would have thrown me out. So I really would be out of a job.
So where were you living at the time? Were you in Arizona?
Nope. I was in Lost Wages.
Lost Wages.
Well, you could have made that 100 grand back in one roll.
Yeah. Or I could have doubled it up.
What is
Let
that?
it ride,
What is
baby.
that Nicolas Cage movie, Leaving Las Vegas? I actually
Viva
think
Las Vegas.
I
Yeah.
probably would have had a different approach. I probably done exactly what I said. How much money do I have left on that credit card I can pull out? And I'm heading down there going, I think I've got it. I think I probably would have done that just to try to get out.
Would you put it all in one roll, or would you give yourself a little bit of wiggle room?
Little wiggle room, and
like 3 rolls.
probably 3. That's how bad it would have been. All right. So obviously, married at the time, kids. Did you have people dependent on you? Were you
Nope.
down?
I was I was divorced several years before that. So yeah, I was on my own.
So it's a tough time, and I'm trying to bring that up because I don't think people understand sometimes just how hard it is to start and run a successful business. And then sometimes you have some big setbacks, and sometimes it's a 6-figure setback sitting in the city of lost wages, which I'm going to use that one forever. I'm stealing that one. But so you're there, and so you go back to corporate America, you get a job, you pay yourself out of it. How the hell did you start another one?
I grinded it out. So here's the funny thing is I just released an episode of my podcast today, and I'm starting a series about my journey coming back from this depths of hell, as I call, or shit, whatever you want to call it. And really, I had a pity party probably for 4 to 6 months. I felt bad for myself, called myself a lot of names, and I think the pity party, I don't think I know. The pity party allowed me to understand where I was at, what I needed to do. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get my finances right. So that was the first thing. I got a job. I got a very well-paying job. So don't get me wrong, but I was working 70 hours a week. So I really didn't have a lot of time to focus on another business. But it allowed me to start digging around in the different industries that I was potentially talking about. And this is where non-performing notes, the secondary and tertiary business came along, to where my parents started researching and started doing a lot of work on their own, started sharing it with me. And then we started doing stuff on the side. But that was a side hustle for almost 4 years that I would work 60 to 70 hours a week, come home at night, work for 4 to 6 hours, get some sleep, get back up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, go to work, do it all over again 7 days a week.
So this is such a great example of the true spirit of the entrepreneur. He's had 2 failed businesses. He's upside down 100 grand in Vegas, and I'm picturing in the gutter with, an empty bottle of something, right? And the only way to get out of that is to go to the corporate world where, hey, I'm making lots of money, only to go back and do it one more time as an entrepreneur. That's hardcore.
Let's talk about it. Let's dig into
it. I was crazy.
You bet. Heck yeah. And I'm loving that, because that's what we are, man. We're flipping crazy. So, all right. So 3rd time at the apple. Here we go. So you got this great idea. You got this can't miss opportunity. Here we go. We're going to start it up. Tell us how you came about it.
It's not a can't miss idea, because at the point I was hesitant on doing anything whatsoever because I was afraid of failing again. So I needed to get my head right. And the place that I started was, my dad was always, they've always had rental properties. And I'm like, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want the 2 a.m. phone call and toilet issues. I don't want to deal with that. There's got to be something else to do. And he's like, well, then we can start flipping properties, or we can start building. I'm like I have time. So the concept, and there's a gentleman that I follow. We're not good friends. I know him. His name's Scott Carson. He's been called the note guy for almost, I think, 12 or 15 years, something like that. And I saw one of his videos on YouTube one late night when I was doing something, and it just clicked. He started talking about non-performing notes, how you can buy them. And this is right around 2000. So it's the end of 2007, 2008 is when we're doing all the homework. So it's perfect timing. The market is crashing, and the secondary and tertiary markets are going crazy. And it's like, what do we do? I mean, you need capital to buy it. And it's like, I'm 6 figures in debt. So I have to figure out, I've got a house and I could have said, okay, and this is where I get crazy. I could have said, okay, let me take that 6 figures, take a second out or a HELOC, whatever the case is on the house, and pay that off. What did I do? I took it out and I used it to roll the dice on non-performing notes. There you
Let's
go.
go. Let's go.
His dad's an enabler.
Giddy
Did you hear
up,
this
baby.
too?
I know. Number one, my dad was never an enabler. I took him to the airport yesterday, but so you did it. Let's go. So you had a business plan this time, right? You said, okay, I'm going to build this up.
Yeah, it's a basic business plan. We started small. We bought 2 notes. We had to learn the due diligence process because there's a whole front end process that you have to work within. So like, let's say you get on a mailing list, because today, great technology, banks today still will send you what they call tapes. They're Excel spreadsheets that have tens of thousands of records, depending on how large the bank is. Something like JP Morgan or Bank of America, they've got hundreds of thousands that are sitting on there that they want to sell. So you literally have to go through this tape Excel spreadsheet to find properties that you potentially want to bid on or buy. And there's anywhere between 48 and 60 rows. So it's all that data across, and you have to figure it out. And we're like, well, what are we going to do? My parents were in California. I'm in Las Vegas. Where do we go buy? And you would think I'd be smart enough to say, oh, let me do it in my own backyard because I could go walk by or drive by the house in Las Vegas. No, we do it in Indiana. We do it in Kentucky because
absolutely.
Because
you two are just kindred spirits.
Right. Why do it easy and go there when I could do something completely asinine and go somewhere else and beat my head against the wall? That's my approach. That's how I do it. I'm not saying you're like me, Ryan, but that's how I roll.
But you would think I would take the smart route again after losing twice and screwing up. But the connection came through was because my dad had a friend that was a pretty large landlord in Indiana, and he was retiring and wanted to get rid of them. But he had a bunch of properties that he had on contract. I don't know if you guys are familiar with contracts. So basically, let's say you want to buy a house, you don't have great credit. What we'll do is we'll do, it's called land contract in Indiana. It's a pretty crappy situation, but
right,
anyhow,
land contracts. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Explain that real quick. Yeah. But just for everybody on the listening, just real quick on what that is.
So basically you're putting a term together. It's a down payment, a monthly payment, and then a amount of time that you're paying this payment to the actual person that owns the property. Once you've paid off that dollar amount, that balance, they're then supposed to sign over that deed to you and you own it outright. There's so many nuances and loopholes in that, and it just becomes a mess. He had like 15 of those that were defaulted that hadn't paid in a while. And Indiana's a judicial state, which means that you have to go in front of a judge or in court to do the foreclosure. In the state of Indiana, when you have a deed of contract a land contract, you actually have to put it through the judicial system, just like you do a foreclosure. And I'm like, why the hell do I want to do this and start this route and go 6-9 months? Because that's typically what it was taking then, because the courts were so backed up then. And I'm like, why do I want to do that? Why don't we just go buy a note that's maybe in Indiana or Kentucky, but just not in the situation it's been underwritten correctly? So then this friend of his turned us on to a couple local banks, and that's how we started notes. And that's where it's all evolved from. The aspect of note buying, like I said earlier, it's rewarding when you help people and allowing them to stay in their house. But today, unfortunately, with pandemic and what's happened, as you guys said earlier, I think it was Alan that said it, was that people are just going to have their mortgages forgiven. Unfortunately, what's coming through the pipe today are all just traditional, conventional mortgages, and none of these are going to be saved. And these people still think the government's going to bail them out. So they just keep on buying more shit, more toys, racking up their credit card debt, their Mercedes-Benz, their BMWs, whatever. And they haven't paid their mortgage. I saw one today that hadn't been paid in 3 years.
Oh my God. 3 years of not paying.
And the lender, I'll just say it. Lender didn't have the balls to foreclose. That's the other part. The optics of foreclosures coming back again, kind of like 2007, 2008, where they didn't want to foreclose on everybody at first. Then all of a sudden there was so much they had to. That's where we're at. There's still 1 million. There's 1.2 to 1.5 million households still in forbearance from this whole nightmare of this pandemic.
Wow. That's a big number that people don't hear about, don't talk about. And that's the space you're playing in now. That's what you've been doing. But again, this is where your passion.
That's a side hustle. I mean, that's when I say side hustle, it's an entity that we do it runs on its own because we've got some other stuff going. My full-time job is Truvest. It's affordable housing, sustainable housing development. That's right. Where
so let's dive into that. Why don't you explain that a little bit? Because I think a lot of people don't understand what affordable housing is and how you're playing in that. And so let's talk about that business
or even how the math works these days. I mean, seriously, how do you create an affordable house with the labor costs and the materials cost? And
very tough. It is very tough. And that's what we're working on, the 16 houses. It's become very, very difficult. Luckily, we have some city partners that lend money at a very affordable rate. And I say affordable, sub 4%.
That's good now. I mean, because today, what's our current rate today? Just to give a mark.
6.32, 6.35, something like that.
Yeah. So you're almost 2.5 basis points down. Yeah. I mean, that's affordable. Okay. Continue on, because I think it's important everybody understand this market a little bit before we start talking about how you're capitalizing what you're doing.
But the challenge is we're going into markets and cities where they've been left behind from any type of private investment capital, however you want to say that. And majority of the neighborhoods are 60%, between 60 and 70% renters and 30 to 40% home ownership. So these individuals and these families don't believe they can own a home. And most of them are what I call unbankable. You pull their credit, and their credit is typically anywhere between I saw one several weeks ago, 419 on a FICO score. That's not the lowest I've seen, but it's pretty low. But typically they're in the fives. They have a lot of red flags when it comes from an underwriting perspective. And I'm not trying to speak jargon, but they have charge-offs, litigation, collection accounts, past due accounts. So they really have some challenges that they have to get through. So how we play in this market, and it again, I've had many falters along the way, but I got smart about 1.5 years ago, and started a nonprofit called True Community. And now True Community can now work with these individuals from a coaching perspective for financial literacy, so they can actually become bankable and they can actually get a traditional mortgage and start playing in the normal arena that most of us do already. Because these individuals play in this secondary market where they're going to buy here, pay here lots to get their cars, where they're paying their car notes on a weekly basis. They're doing title loans. I've even negotiated with a local block dealer, as they call them, to where he's giving out loans to people on the block, and they're charging like 25%. So I mean, there's just
how do you break that cycle? I mean, I've started a couple of nonprofits too, by the way, but they had no philanthropic intent. They just didn't make any money.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Anyway,
but I don't run. I'm not running. I will not run the business, the nonprofit, like a nonprofit. It's ran for profit, but at the end of the year, we'll take the money and we'll invest it into something that we're doing, as long as we meet that IRS criteria. Because if I run it as a nonprofit, it's just a disaster, and there's so much red tape, and it doesn't work. But ultimately, the question that you said earlier was, how do you get those people to change? You don't. Our saying above the door, and we're getting it all, we're going to have it above all our doors, is we'll be here when you're ready. They have to want to make the change. They have to want to make that step forward to that new life. If they want to be comfortable, fat, and happy on the couch doing whatever they want to do, God bless them. If they want to be climbers and they want to climb out and change that family history that they have, because some of these people have lived in houses for generations. I'm talking to a guy that has been living in the same house. I think it's 3 or 4 generations. I can't remember. So that landlord's mortgage has been paid over, I don't know how many years. And it's crazy that they just don't think they can buy a home, which they can. And there's so many options. There's down payment assistant options for them. There's closing cost options for them. There's buy down rates for them. There's so many things they can do. They just have to do the work on their credit to get there.
So this is where I want to go. So nuts and bolts. I love this part too, because I've talked about this with younger folks too, about how do you build your credit. But building your credit from a zero sum is good, but building your credit from a negative And so you brought this up. My hard line has always been 650 or below. You got some work to do, man. You're not in a good spot. This is where the spiral just keeps bringing you down unless you break that cycle and bring that spiral back up. So obviously you're coaching around mentality, saving, because it starts with not spending more than you make, right? And then it starts with getting out of all these other short-term debts that you're in, and money lenders, title loans, all that stuff. That cost of capital is so expensive. That's actually one of the things we train our guys in here at the Trusted Toolbox, is that I'm going to help you make more, right? And that's how much you get. But I'm also going to talk to you about once a year about how you can save more, how you get to keep more. I can't tell you about Uncle Sam and all that stuff, the taxes, but I can tell you about, you don't live above your means. And these are, once you're at a certain level, it's a lot easier to talk about. But when you're in that level, it's hard, man. It's hard to say, hey, you go without cable. Hey, you don't get to have the Mercedes. You're going to have to buy the Achieva. You don't get to.
I'm laughing. I'm sorry. I'm laughing because that is the exact conversation I have with people. So when they call in, they say, I want to buy a house. And of course, it's sad. I ask people, do you know what your credit score is? Yes, I do. Okay. What is it? 720, 730. It's always in the sevens. I've never had anybody tell me that they're in the sixes or the fives. And I said, so when did you last check your credit? Oh, a couple months ago. Oh, what did you do it on? Credit Karma, whatever they're doing. I'm like, okay. So it's a mentality that has been ingrained in all of us at some point about credit, but schooling, I'm back to that, has left that so far behind. And some of these people don't even know how to understand what comes in and goes out of their bank account on a monthly basis. And I'm not talking old school me checkbook. I don't carry my checkbook anymore, but I used to balance a checkbook back in the day before, we had technology. I mean, I used to remember, 15, 25 phone numbers off the top of my head. Now I can barely remember my own.
Right.
But they've been left behind from the system, and for a for-profit to do that, there's just no way to do it. So we had to set up a nonprofit and work that route. And we will get grant money. We're working on that. And then we get donations and go through that process. But ultimately, I want to bring on 3, maybe 4 financial counselors that can handle it full time and be able to work with these people to where we can have anywhere between 75 and 100 people going at a time. Because Chris, there's just so much for infield lots where I'm at in Indiana and Kentucky. And there's just a huge demand in this space for people to buy homes. And they just don't realize they can. Even with interest rates up, it's amazing how well you can do in this space when you have all the tools, down payment assistance tool, buy down rate, closing costs. You can make it so you can make it to where it's even cheaper than rent. And we're still doing that. We're still doing that in this high rate, in this high interest rate market. But the challenge comes with this, and I'm sure you guys were trying to get to this, is a for-profit working in a affordable housing space, and margin wise, it sucks. It's a lot of grinding, and it's a lot of really wringing out the numbers and efficiency. The only way we can get to the numbers we get to today is because of efficiencies and scale. If I don't have 4 or 5 houses lined up next to each other to build, it doesn't work. I can't just build one house, because then I don't have the ability to get discounted lumber. I don't have the ability to get my supplies and my materials and anything else that comes along, or any type of foundation work done or block work done. They all want scale. And when I give them the scale, my price typically goes down anywhere between 25 and 40%, to where then I'm able to pass that along.
Yeah, that's great. And so we're starting to get towards the end of our time, and I want to talk a little bit more about. So obviously you got the not-for-profit, and that was called
True Community.
True Community. So we can find that online as well.
mytruecommunity.org.
Very cool. Love that. So let's talk a little bit more about what your main hustle is. What do you do? What do you do day in and day out besides do this podcast for funsies?
Day in and day out is Truvest. It's affordable housing space. I'm in that. The other piece is I don't talk much about it, but I do coaching. and the coaching is all around finances, but it's not. The joke is, and people think it's funny, is most of the time it's broke doctors, attorneys, and airline pilots that come to me, and they're referrals. They're from an old boss of mine that I worked with many years. Typically, these individuals, the attorneys, are going to do a deal in the banking world, and they need some help with their finances and get their practice right. So they come to me, and we work on that stuff. That keeps me busy. The podcast, I've got 2 of them. They are my passion projects. I get my voice out there. I get great guests like yourself on, and they keep me busy. Also, I record one every week. And then in between, I mean, I try to get out in the community and just enjoy people and talk to people. And I'm at that point in my life where I think here very shortly, I'll be able to start doing more volunteer basis work and give back. And I'd like to be able to do some type of mentoring. I just haven't got there yet because of time constraints.
That's awesome. As the whole arc, and we talked about it, we joked about being the failed entrepreneur, but where you're at today, would you say you're more fulfilled now and more actualized, as self-actualized, as they say, in that the Maslow's hierarchy? Dropping some good stuff on you.
Look at you. Look at the big brains on Chris.
Oh, good news. That's what the power of Google is. I just looked it up. No, I'm just going back to that. Would you say you're more fulfilled, more self-actualized today than you've ever been?
By far. I mean, there's a lot of things there's a lot of things that go into entrepreneurship, but the rewards in the end, if you're chasing the passion and you're going after it, like you said earlier, the money comes. We're hardwired for that instant gratification, and that got me twice. Greed, instant gratification, however you want to say it. But now when I go into something and I'm going to start doing something different, I know that it's not going to come overnight. So I have to pace myself and understand where it's going to go, plan it out. As you say, a business plan. I do something a little bit different. I actually it's 1, a goal, but 2, the second piece would be more outlining the steps that I want to accomplish and put some timeframes on them. It doesn't have to be SMART goals, but some really succinct goals that will get me there. Like I'm looking on the other side of my camera. We're actually going to do a capital raise for another development that we're working on. It's going to be a veteran only community. And I've got some very big lofty goals to do that, because this will be the first time, like I said earlier, that we've taken raw dirt and created it into a community. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but I have some really lofty, succinct goals that I want to accomplish, and I'm going to fail along the way, and I'm going to learn from it and move myself into a better place. And I always tell myself this, or I ask myself this: am I happier today than I was yesterday? And if I answer yes, that's great. But then I do one more layer. Am I happier today than I was when I was in corporate America? And that is one every single day, even in my shittiest days, $100,000 in debt. I don't know, the worst day. I can think of some pretty bad days where I screwed some stuff up. I wouldn't go back to corporate America. And every year on the anniversary that I left corporate America for the 3rd time, my mom always asked, "You ready to go back? Do you want to go back?" And my exact words to her is, "Hell no."
As I took my dad to the bank yesterday, and then we'll start wrapping up. I took him to the bank, and I passed right back past I was on the 8th floor corner office, looked over the highway down downtown Atlanta. He said, "Do you miss the bank?" And I said, "No, never, ever did I miss the bank. Do I miss some things?" I said, "Yeah, I might miss some things." I said, "But had I never got out here in the wild world of small business and doing the small business safari and doing the stuff we get out there to talk about getting your voice out, I love this stuff. This gets me more energy. I'm jacked up. I don't really want to get going, but I know you've got to get going. We got to all wrap up and get everybody out of here, because you've been listening to this podcast and we're rocking." So, Ryan, how can everybody get a hold of you? And we'll put all this stuff in our show notes.
Easiest way is just email me, ryan@truvest.co. So it's truvest.co.
Dude, check this guy out. I've really enjoyed getting to know him through the podcast world, and I've always enjoyed going back and forth with him on email. He's given me some great tips and talked to me a lot about the economy. That's helped form my own business opinion about what I'm doing with my own company here in the Trusted Toolbox. But before we go, we have got to talk about my 3 favorite questions. The first one is, Ryan, we can't let you go without asking, what is the favorite feature of your own home?
My shower. I actually have a full walk-in shower that has a nice, I don't know, seat in it, and it has a rain shower head on it. And it's just, when you go in there, it's just relaxing. I can let everything go. If I'm all stressed out, take a shower, feel good, ready to go.
Water solves a lot of problems, my friends. I love that. The shower. And by the way, the Trusted Toolbox does do bathrooms and kitchens, and we do beautiful showers. Thank you for that shameless plug, Chris. Back to you, Ryan. Okay, here we are. So we are customer service freaks here at the Small Business Safari. We want to hear, what is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
Oh God, I spent too many years in this space. The biggest one is telling me how I feel, or they understand how I feel. And it's just the basic, it's inflection. But when you tell me that, you're like, you really do know how I feel? How do I feel? And when I ask that question, most of the time the customer service agent has no response. And then I'll tell them, hey, just don't tell me that. I'm okay. It's life. We screw stuff up, but you don't know how I feel.
I love it. All right, now we got to talk about this one of my near and dear favorite topics, and we love to hear this. Give us a DIY nightmare story.
Oh Lord, I got so many of those. I mean,
just narrow it down to blood or fire.
Yeah, blood, dismemberment.
Fire. Oh, fire! Fire's perfect. We were our very first house that we ever rehabbed in anything I did in my life for this business, Truvest, and the plumber is putting in the hot water heater. It's gas. And he goes, oh yeah, everything's turned on. He turns it on, and he lights a match, and we about blow the whole thing up. No joke. and I'm standing outside, I'm walking in as it blows up, and it's this flamethrower that's coming out. Luckily, all we had the house was to studs, and there was somebody there that had a fire extinguisher. We were able to put it out. But oh my God, I just like, you got to be crazy.
I want to make sure I let my guest shine, but I'm going to have to one-up him. Not only did I have a flamethrower, but I had a flamethrower in an existing home with the oven sitting 3 feet away from it, and we were throwing flames from the back because everything had come kicked away. They didn't turn the gas off, and somebody had hit a stud and a nail at the same time with a hammer, sparked it. Boom! Gas comes flying out. I come walking into the house. We got gas just shooting into this house. You want to talk about panic? I mean, oh my God. So good news is all we did was melt the front of her oven, and she had no idea that we almost burned her entire house down. But I said, I'll get that taken care of. But that was many years ago, and we're much better at what we did. Ryan, I really enjoyed this. I know Alan has as well.
I have.
Yes, you have. I know that. So Ryan, thanks again for coming on the Small Business Safari. Remember, everybody, keep going up that mountaintop of success. Get there, make it happen. But sometimes you might get bumped, you might get hit, you might have to get back up. Keep on rolling. Till next time,
cheers.
We're out of here. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Small Business Safari. Remember to keep that positive attitude, which will reflect in a higher altitude as you're out there making it happen in the wild world of small business ownership. Until next time, go make it a great day, Adventure Team.